After being fired because of her ex-boyfriend, she had to create her own company, and no one believed what happened years later when they met again. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. Sophia Hartley had always been known for her quiet determination, a quality that had served her well as she navigated her way through the competitive world of law. As an associate at the prestigious Milton & Spencer law firm, she had worked tirelessly to prove herself. Her career was on a steady rise until she met Andrew Coleman. Andrew wasn't just another lawyer. He was the firm's star. Charismatic, ambitious, and fiercely competitive, Andrew had quickly climbed the ranks, gaining the admiration of senior partners and junior associates alike. Sophia, naturally drawn to his confidence, found herself falling for him in a way that blurred the lines between her personal and professional life. What started as a passionate office romance quickly spiraled into something much more serious. But Andrew was not the type to settle down, and when the relationship hit a rocky patch, his true colors emerged. He ended things abruptly, and the fallout wasn't just emotional for Sophia. Within a week of their breakup, she was called into the managing partner's office, where she was told her position at the firm was no longer secure. It wasn't hard to connect the dots. Andrew had pulled the strings to have her removed. Sophia was devastated. Being fired wasn't just a professional blow, it was personal. She had trusted Andrew, believed in their connection, and now he had wielded his influence to crush her career. But as she packed up her desk, she made herself a silent promise. She wouldn't let this break her. Months passed, and Sophia found herself at a crossroads. Her confidence had been shattered, and finding a new position in the legal world wasn't as easy as she had hoped. Milton & Spencer's reputation carried weight, and her sudden departure from the firm was seen as suspicious by potential employers. She received one rejection letter after another, and the thought of rebuilding her career from scratch seemed impossible. One rainy afternoon, as she sat in her small apartment surrounded by stacks of law books, an idea struck her. If no firm would hire her, she would build her own. It sounded ludicrous at first. What did she know about running a business? She barely had enough savings to pay her rent, let alone start a law firm. But the more she thought about it, the more determined she became. This was her chance to take control of her life, to prove to herself and to Andrew that she didn't need anyone's permission to succeed. The early days of her firm were brutal. She worked long hours, taking on small cases that other firms wouldn't touch, barely making enough to keep the lights on. But slowly, word spread about her tenacity and dedication. Clients began to trickle in, and with each new case, Sophia's reputation grew. She specialized in corporate law, taking on companies in legal battles that seemed unwinnable. Her firm, Hartley & Associates, became known for its relentless pursuit of justice and its willingness to go to war for its clients. Meanwhile, Andrew's career continued its meteoric rise. He had been made partner at Milton & Spencer, and his name was frequently mentioned in legal circles as a rising star. Despite her success, Sophia couldn't escape his shadow. Every time she attended a legal conference or met with a client, she heard whispers of Andrew's latest victory. It was a constant reminder of the man who had tried to destroy her, and though she had moved on professionally, the sting of his betrayal lingered. One day, as Sophia was preparing for a high-stakes corporate trial, she received a surprising email. It was from Andrew. She hadn't heard from him in years, and seeing his name in her inbox brought back a flood of memories, some good, but mostly painful. The subject line was simple: "Can we talk?" Sophia hesitated for a moment before opening the message. The email was short and to the point. Andrew explained that he was in town and wanted to catch up. He suggested meeting for coffee, mentioning that he had a proposition for her. Her initial reaction was one of anger. After everything he had done, after all the pain he had caused, he thought they could just sit down and chat like old friends. The nerve of him. But her curiosity got the better of her. What could Andrew possibly want after all these years? She wasn't the same woman he had discarded so easily. Now, she was a successful businesswoman, the owner of a firm that was gaining recognition in the legal world. If he thought he could waltz back into her life without consequence, he was sorely mistaken. Sophia agreed to meet him, but not because she wanted to reconnect. She wanted to hear what he had to say, to confront him and maybe, just maybe, get the closure she had never had. When she arrived at the small cafe where they had agreed to meet, she spotted Andrew sitting at a corner table. He looked different, older, more tired. Gone was the cocky grin and the air of invincibility that had once drawn her to him. Instead, there was a heaviness about him, a man who had been through something significant. "Sophia," he said, standing as she approached. "It's been too long." "Not long enough," she replied, her tone sharp. She wasn't here to play nice. They sat down, and Andrew wasted no time getting to the point. He had heard about her firm's success. How could he not? Hartley and Associates had been making waves in the corporate world, and her recent high-profile case had put her on the map in a big way. "I'm not going to beat around the bush," Andrew said, his voice low. "I'm in trouble. Big trouble." Sophia raised an eyebrow, her interest piqued. She had expected some kind of smug apology, perhaps a lame attempt to rekindle old feelings. But this was unexpected. "My firm," Andrew continued, "we're on the verge of bankruptcy. We've been losing clients left and right, and there's a scandal brewing that could ruin us. I need help, Sophia. I need someone like you to help me navigate this mess." For a moment, Sophia was speechless. The man who had once destroyed her career was now begging for her help. It was almost too perfect, too ironic. But as satisfying as the moment was, she knew she couldn't let her emotions cloud her judgment. She had worked too hard to get where she was, and the last thing she needed was to get entangled in Andrew's problems. "Why should I help you?" she asked, her voice steady. "After everything you did to me, why would I lift a finger to save you?" Andrew looked down at his hands, his confidence crumbling. "I know I don't deserve your help. I was a fool, and I made mistakes, big ones. But I'm asking you, not as an ex-lover, but as a professional. You know the law better than anyone. If anyone can save this firm, it's you." Sophia leaned back in her chair, watching him closely. She could see the desperation in his eyes, the fear. This wasn't the Andrew she had known. This was a man on the edge of losing everything. "I'll think about it," she said finally, standing up. "But don't hold your breath." As she walked away from the cafe, Sophia's mind raced. The satisfaction of seeing Andrew brought low was undeniable, but there was something else nagging at her. If his firm went under, it would create a power vacuum in the legal world, one that Hartley and Associates could easily fill. Helping him could hurt her own rise, but watching him crumble might not be enough to satisfy her. One thing was certain: Andrew Coleman had made a fatal mistake by underestimating her years ago. Now, it was Sophia's turn to decide his fate. As Sophia left the cafe, the irony of the situation settled over her like a dark cloud. Andrew Coleman, the man who had so callously tossed her aside and wrecked her career, was now on his knees, begging her for help. A part of her relished the moment, imagining his downfall and how poetic it would be for him to lose everything, just as she had. Yet, something gnawed at her. Andrew's plea wasn't just desperate. It was urgent, and that sense of urgency troubled her. The days following their encounter passed quickly. Sophia threw herself into her work, handling her cases with precision and intensity, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Andrew's situation. Why should she care? She told herself repeatedly. After all, she had everything she needed. Her firm was thriving, her reputation growing, and she had long ago proven that she didn't need him. But the curiosity was like a splinter, a small but persistent discomfort she couldn't ignore. One evening, as she sat in her office, reviewing documents for an upcoming trial, an idea struck her. It wasn't about helping Andrew, not directly. Instead, she realized that this was an opportunity, a way to not only destroy him for good, but to further secure her place in the legal world. If she could maneuver this situation right, she could leverage Andrew's crumbling empire to expand her own influence. Sophia pulled out her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in years. "Rebecca, it's Sophia. I need a favor." Rebecca Mallory had been a close friend from law school and was now an investigative journalist with deep connections in the corporate world. They had drifted apart after graduation, as their careers had taken different paths, but Rebecca had always been someone Sophia could trust. "What's going on?" Rebecca asked after they exchanged pleasantries. "I need you to dig into Andrew Coleman's firm. There's a scandal brewing, and I need to know the details before it hits the headlines. Rebecca's interest was piqued immediately. This is juicy. What's in it for me? If you find something big, you'll have the exclusive story. Plus, I'll owe you one, Sophia replied, knowing that Rebecca valued both stories and favors. All right, I'll get back to you as soon as I have something. With that, Sophia sat back in her chair, feeling a sense of control wash over her. Whatever Andrew was hiding, she would know soon enough. A few days later, Rebecca called back with news that made Sophia's blood run cold. Andrew's firm wasn't just on the verge of bankruptcy. It was embroiled in a massive corruption scandal involving insider trading and corporate espionage. High-ranking executives had been implicated, and it was only a matter of time before the details were made public. But that wasn't the most shocking part. The real bombshell was that Andrew himself was deeply involved in the illegal activities. If this came to light, not only would his career be over, but he could be facing criminal charges. "This is bigger than I thought," Rebecca said over the phone. "You could take him down with this, Sophia. He'll never recover." Sophia felt a mixture of triumph and dread. The victory she had long dreamed of was within reach. She could expose Andrew, let the world see him for the fraud he truly was, and in doing so, eliminate her biggest competitor. But at the same time, she realized that this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about power, and wielding that power came with consequences. "Thanks, Rebecca. Keep digging and let me know if you find anything else," Sophia said before hanging up. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Sophia threw herself into work, watching from the sidelines as rumors of the scandal began to circulate in legal circles. Andrew's firm started hemorrhaging clients, and whispers of its imminent collapse filled the air. Yet, Andrew hadn't reached out to her again, which only heightened her suspicion that he was trying to handle the situation on his own. Late one evening, Sophia received a surprise visitor at her office, Andrew. He looked worse than before, his once sharp features now drawn with stress and sleeplessness. There was no trace of the confident man she had once known. "Sophia, I'm out of options," he said, his voice hoarse. "The firm is going under. I'm going to lose everything unless you help me." Sophia stared at him, her emotions warring within her. This was the moment she had been waiting for. He was completely at her mercy, and she could destroy him with a single word. But as she looked at him, a small part of her wondered if she should feel any sympathy. Andrew had hurt her. Yes, but was this kind of complete destruction necessary? "I already know about the scandal," Sophia said coldly, watching his reaction closely. "Rebecca Mallory has been feeding me information for weeks." Andrew's face paled. I didn't know it had gotten that far." "It's worse than you think," Sophia continued, her voice steady. "You're not just facing bankruptcy. If this gets out, you could be facing criminal charges. Prison, Andrew. You could lose everything." He sank into the chair across from her, his hands shaking. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. It was supposed to be a quick win, a way to boost the firm's profits, but I lost control. I didn't know how deep the corruption ran." Sophia felt a pang of something. Pity, perhaps? No, it was too late for that. Andrew had made his choices, and now he had to live with them. "Why should I help you?" Sophia asked, her voice cutting through the silence. "You ruined my career, destroyed my reputation, and left me with nothing. Now you come here, expecting me to save you? Give me one good reason why I should." Andrew swallowed hard, his gaze fixed on the floor. "Because you're better than this. You've always been better than me. I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm asking you to do this as a professional, not as a personal favor. You know the law inside and out. You could fix this." Sophia laughed bitterly. "You want me to fix the mess you made?" Andrew looked up, his eyes pleading. "Please, Sophia. I'm begging you." The room was thick with tension as Sophia considered her options. She could help him, yes, but at what cost? Helping him would put her own firm at risk, and she wasn't willing to sacrifice everything she had built. But at the same time, watching him fall completely might not be as satisfying as she had once thought. After what felt like an eternity, Sophia made her decision. "No, Andrew, I won't help you," she said, her voice firm. "I've spent too long rebuilding my life, and I won't risk it all for you. You made your choices, and now you'll have to deal with the consequences." Andrew's face crumpled in defeat, and he nodded slowly. I understand. As he stood to leave, Sophia felt a strange sense of closure wash over her. This was the end of the road for Andrew, and she had finally reclaimed the power he had once stolen from her. But as the days passed, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that something was still off. Rebecca had uncovered a lot of information, but there was a missing piece, a detail that didn't quite add up. Why had Andrew gotten involved in such risky, illegal activities in the first place? It seemed out of character, even for him. Then, one night, as she was reviewing some old case files, it hit her a name. A company Andrew had worked with years ago had been linked to another scandal, one that had been quietly swept under the rug. Sophia had barely paid attention to it at the time, but now it stood out like a glaring red flag. She pulled up the file and began to dig deeper. The more she uncovered, the more horrified she became. The corruption wasn't just confined to Andrew's firm. It was much larger, involving powerful corporations and government officials. And the worst part? Andrew hadn't orchestrated the scheme. He had been a pawn in someone else's game. The true mastermind behind the corruption was someone even more dangerous, a high-ranking government official who had used Andrew as a scapegoat to cover their tracks. If this got out, it wouldn't just ruin Andrew. It could bring down entire industries. Sophia realized that she was now in possession of information that could change everything. She had two choices: expose the truth and risk everything she had built, or stay silent and let Andrew take the fall for crimes he hadn't fully committed. Sophia sat in her office, the weight of the discovery pressing down on her like a suffocating fog. The truth she had uncovered was bigger than she could have ever imagined. Andrew's involvement in the corruption scandal wasn't the result of his own greed and ambition, as she had initially thought. Instead, he had been manipulated, used as a pawn by a much larger, more dangerous entity. A high-ranking government official with deep connections in the corporate world had orchestrated the entire scheme, pulling the strings from the shadows. For the first time, Sophia realized that helping Andrew wouldn't just be a personal vendetta or a simple case of corporate rivalry. It would mean exposing something that could shake the foundations of the legal, political, and business world. But with that realization came an even greater danger. If she pursued this, she wouldn't just be taking on Andrew. She'd be taking on a network of powerful individuals with resources and influence far beyond what she had ever faced. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the file in front of her. The names, the companies, the intricate web of deceit. It was all laid out, but what was she going to do with it? The temptation to walk away was strong. After all, why should she risk everything? She had worked too hard to build her firm, her reputation, her life. Taking on this fight could mean losing it all. But then, she thought of Andrew. He had wronged her, yes. He had hurt her in ways she still couldn't fully forgive. But did he deserve to be the fall guy for crimes he didn't fully commit? Was letting him take the blame for something he didn't orchestrate the kind of justice she believed in? Sophia sighed, knowing that she couldn't ignore the truth. Walking away wasn't in her nature. She had always believed in justice, even when it came at a personal cost. And now, with everything laid out in front of her, she knew what she had to do. The next morning, Sophia called Rebecca. "I need to see you," she said, her voice steady but urgent. They met at a small cafe, far from the office where prying eyes might be watching. As soon as Rebecca sat down, Sophia slid the file across the table. "This is bigger than I thought. You need to see this." Rebecca's eyes widened as she flipped through the pages. "Holy, this is huge, Sophia. You're talking about exposing a scandal that could bring down some of the most powerful people in the country. Are you sure you want to go through with this?" Sophia nodded. "I don't have a choice. If I don't do this, Andrew will go down for crimes he didn't orchestrate. And worse, the people responsible will get away with it." Rebecca looked at her friend, understanding the gravity of the situation. "You know this could put you in serious danger, right? These aren't just corporate thugs. We're talking about politicians, government officials, people who won't hesitate to protect themselves at any cost." "I know," Sophia replied, "but I've already made up my mind." Rebecca paused for a moment before speaking. "All right, if we're doing this, we need to be smart. We can't just go public with this information. We'll need to gather more evidence, build a case so solid that no one can question it. Sophia agreed. They spent the next few weeks working in secret, carefully gathering the documents and evidence they needed to support their case. It was a meticulous process, one that required patience and precision. They couldn't afford any mistakes. Every step they took had to be calculated, every move scrutinized to ensure they weren't tipping off the wrong people. As they built their case, the tension grew. Sophia started noticing strange cars parked outside her office, shadowy figures watching her movements. She wasn't paranoid. She knew she was being followed. The people involved in this scandal were powerful, and they were starting to realize that someone was digging too deep. One night, after a long day of work, Sophia received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was cold, detached. "Drop this investigation, or you'll regret it." The threat sent chills down her spine, but it only strengthened her resolve. She wasn't going to be intimidated. She had come too far to back down now. Meanwhile, Andrew's situation was growing more desperate. His firm was on the brink of collapse, and the rumors swirling around him were growing louder. He hadn't heard from Sophia since their last meeting, and the uncertainty gnawed at him. He knew he was in deep trouble, but he still didn't fully understand the magnitude of the scandal he was caught up in. One afternoon, as he sat in his nearly empty office, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Sophia. "We need to meet. There's something you need to know." They met later that evening at a quiet bar, far from the prying eyes of the legal world. Andrew looked haggard, a shadow of the man he had once been. As soon as Sophia sat down, she slid a folder across the table. "This is what I've uncovered," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You're not the mastermind behind this scandal, Andrew. You're just a pawn." Andrew's eyes widened as he opened the folder and began to read. The color drained from his face as the truth hit him. "I didn't know," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I thought I was in control. I thought I was the one calling the shots." "You were never in control," Sophia said, her tone matter of fact. "The people behind this were using you to cover their tracks. If this goes public, you'll take the fall for everything." Andrew looked up at her, a mixture of fear and gratitude in his eyes. "Why are you telling me this? After everything I did to you, why are you helping me?" Sophia paused for a moment before answering. "Because this isn't about you or me anymore. This is about justice. I couldn't just stand by and let you take the fall for something bigger than both of us." Andrew nodded slowly, his hands trembling as he closed the folder. "What do we do now?" "We expose the truth," Sophia said simply. "But we have to be smart about it. We need more evidence, and we need to make sure we're protected." The final phase of their plan came together quickly. Sophia and Rebecca worked tirelessly to gather the last pieces of evidence, while Andrew, now fully aware of the stakes, used his remaining connections to help. It was a dangerous game they were playing, but they were all in too deep to turn back. Finally, the day came when they were ready to go public. Rebecca had arranged for a major media outlet to break the story, complete with all the documentation they had gathered. It was explosive. Names, dates, transactions, everything laid bare for the world to see. The fallout was immediate. The high-ranking government official at the center of the scandal was forced to resign, and several corporate executives were arrested. Andrew, though still facing consequences for his involvement, was spared the worst of the legal repercussions, thanks to the evidence Sophia had provided. As for Sophia, her firm's reputation skyrocketed. She was hailed as a hero in the legal community for her bravery in exposing the truth, and Hartley & Associates became one of the most sought-after firms in the country. But despite the professional accolades, Sophia remained haunted by the choices she had made. She had saved Andrew, yes, but at a cost. She had risked everything, her career, her life, to do what she believed was right. And while the world saw her as a champion of justice, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the danger she had put herself in. In the end, Sophia realized that the line between right and wrong was often blurred, and the pursuit of justice was rarely clean. But she had stayed true to her principles, even when the stakes were high, and that, she knew, was the final verdict on her character. As Andrew sat in his office, now working as a consultant rather than a partner, he reflected on the events that had transpired. He had lost much, his firm, his reputation, but he had gained something far more valuable: humility. And though Sophia had refused to take him back into her life, he would always be grateful for the second chance she had given him. Sophia stood by the window of her corner office, gazing out at the city below. The fight was over, the scandal exposed, and justice had been served. But as she sipped her coffee, she couldn't shake the feeling that there were still battles to be fought, still truths to uncover. And as long as she was standing, she would never stop fighting for what was right. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story.